Hey everyone, it's Carter King. If you're an educator, a leader, or just a parent who wants to teach kids about space, check out my newest book, Carter's Journey Through Space. It's available now on Amazon, Target, and bookstores everywhere. Come explore the universe with me.
Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is simple: to help you create environments where people thrive. Through real conversations, practical strategies, and powerful stories, we equip leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself to build cultures rooted in purpose, performance, and authenticity. Because culture isn't something you talk about, it's something you live. This is the Contagious Culture Podcast. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is to help you create an ecosystem and environment where people thrive. In today's conversation, I want to ask a question. What happens when strategy meets heart? What happens when the overlooking, misunderstanding, and under-resourced schools actually have what they need to be able to survive and thrive? And today's guest has helped schools grow not by 5% or 7%, but by more than 25% in both reading and mathematics by doing one thing: shifting systems, mindsets, and how we support our teachers. So if you're that person that's listening in and you care about real school transformation, this episode is going to be a masterclass. Miss Williams, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I am amazing. I am amazing. I feel like a lot of people throw away December and we just jump to January 1st, but I'm on fire this month. I'm on
Yeah,
fire.
yeah.
Yes.
We still have some time to make a change. I've been hearing lately that fourth quarter is always the quarter that most businesses make the highest and biggest jumps in their business. So
Mm,
it's definitely not over.
no, it's definitely not over. It's just getting started. And as we talk about starting, can you start us off by just introducing yourself, telling us who you are, what you do, and why you do this work?
My name is Olavee Williams, and I am a business founder, owner of the Strategy Room. And what I do is specialize around working with uh, beginning special education teachers, leadership teams around making sure that they have sound running SPED departments and making sure that they have systems and strategies in place, not only for students to perform well, but also compliance and just kind of having a balance because both are important.
No, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
One of the challenges that I've seen as a teacher, administrator, board member, especially in education, is that there's not enough people that go into the SPED department. And not just not enough people, we're not training, qualifying, recruiting, and developing those teams.
Mhm.
Why do you think that is?
Um, I'm going to say this, and this is just overall, and even research shows that there's a high percentage of leadership administrators that do not have a background in special education.
Interesting.
And I think that number was right around 95%.
95% of leaders do not have a background in special ed.
Yes,
Oh
yes,
my
it was a high percentage. And because of that, um, I don't think, not by purpose, that they really understand what it entails in having a successful SPED department.
goodness.
I think their hearts are in the right place, but you have to really walk that journey to understand what all is on the plate of a special education teacher you know, what all the needs are that you're dealing with whenever you're working with students, because it's not just teaching, it's the paperwork, it's the planning, it's the individualizing the lessons for every child, it's the data tracking, the analyzing the data to know what to do next, so that, you know, because we can easily sit around a table, come up with all of these goals and percentages of where we want our students, but I don't think we take the time to really look inside to see what's the work that goes into doing that. And like going back to what you said, when you don't have the staff, it makes it hard. That's why a lot of our SPED teachers are burnt out.
Let me ask you this, you know, and excuse my own ignorance, but I feel like today there's more students that are needing special education services than when I was a student. Now, I don't know if I was just aware of it. I'm more aware of it now, or I wasn't aware of it when I was a student. But has there been an increase in students that need these services, or was it just that we weren't aware or didn't have the terminology or the resources to be able to best provide for students 10, 20 years ago?
I don't think necessarily there's a need or increase. I think where the problem and more work needs to be done is our process in how we identify students or put them on that track to say that they do need this. And a lot of times when students begin to struggle, we a lot of time assume, oh, that child needs special education services. But when you have to put it back into the teacher's lap and say, what have you done to show that they need it? A lot of the times the data, the interventions and things that they should have done is not there.
Exactly.
And a lot of times if proper intervention is done in tier one, and multiple attempts of trying to change the academic goal or whatever, you know, you're trying to work towards that student. If you have effective, systematic interventions and progress monitoring in place, a lot of times you see that that child will respond.
That's good.
But we don't have proper systems in place for that. And so if you have a school, and I will say this, and I'm just being honest, that do not have a good MTSS system in place, you'll find a lot of teachers that go straight from, I have a student that have a problem, to we want them to be looked at for special education, and skipping all the steps in between to ensure that's what that child really needs.
Oh, I definitely second that. And, you know, I'm not going to name the names of schools, but I've seen schools that I've either partnered with, worked with, collaborated with, that teachers are not educated or equipped with the knowledge or resources to be able to best provide for that student. So they believe that when a student experiences challenges within the classroom, then, oh, this must be, you know, a student that needs special education services, rather than a full process and system and structure that can be able to identify what's really going on under the surface. My question is, though, what are these systems that need to be put in place? What are these structures that need to be put in place? And if I'm a leader listening in, what do I need to do differently so that these things don't happen?
So when I talk about MTSS, I'm talking about it in the terms of a system that meets every student in your building's needs. And we start at tier one, and that is strengthening your core and making sure that your teachers are knowledgeable of the core. You know, do they know what they're teaching? Do they understand how to teach the standards that they have to teach?
Exactly.
You know, and so that's where we start at. We start at tier one and making sure that they're able to provide good instruction to every child.
Okay.
And then, after you show that you may have students that do not get it after good instruction, and then if after good instruction they don't have it, then what are your interventions that you have in place that's not done by the special education teacher,
Yeah.
that's done in the classroom, that's targeted to, the areas that you see children struggling in? Like, how are you collecting that data? How are you monitoring that data? What interventions are you putting in place to help rectify that deficit that you continue to see? So if though something and steps as simple as that, you will find that most people don't have those things in place. Teachers don't have those things in place because when you ask the simple question, what interventions are you using? Most of the time, they don't have the answer.
No.
And
What do you think that is, though? Like, and this is basic education stuff right here. And, this is like leadership 101 when you're running a school. Why do you think that these things don't exist? Are there other areas or reasons why these things don't exist?
well, you have several different reasons. If you have new teachers that are coming in the classroom, sometimes is a learning curve
Mm-hmm.
for many teachers. Whenever you have veteran teachers, sometimes for veteran teachers is sometimes they're not willing to learn and do things differently
Yeah.
to meet the need of students. But it's all about, as a leader, as an administration, what type of expectations you have to put your staff, your teachers in a place to where they have to rise to the occasion. They have to rise to the level of where you're trying to take your students and your school. And I think sometimes you have to make decisions of who you have if they're,
Yes.
based off of what they're willing to be able to adjust and come up to.
One of the things that I've realized in my own journey is it's hard to um, build a SPED department, especially with newer schools, or even schools that are getting ready to go independent or charter schools. Um, I guess, why do so many SPED departments struggle? And if I'm a newer school, where do I begin in developing a strong SPED department that is inclusive of all students?
Well, I think one of the main things is programming.
Mhm.
Um, you have teachers, leaders that have these IEPs, but how you're going to uh, work through or implement those IEPs and what type of resources you're going to use, that's a lot of times where people struggle.
Interesting.
Because you'll find a lot of times when you do go in charter schools or schools that are not part of these bigger districts,
Mhm.
they have their main curriculums, but sometimes, a lot of times, they don't have things that specifically towards helping or teaching to the goals and things that our students with IEPs or disabilities need, or to help them
Yeah.
reach their goals that's set forth on in their IEP. So you find a lot of piecing things together.
Mhm.
I think with reading, you always need to have an explicit, systematic program that really teaches the foundations of reading. A lot
Interesting.
of times that's hard, and you don't see that. So I think that that's one of the main things, and just understanding the whole ins and outs, the compliance, the regulations, the policies
Mhm.
around EC, a lot, that's where a lot of lack is.
Mhm.
And it takes understanding that, digging into that to help you develop solid, strong EC departments.
Now, let me ask you this. We talk a lot and hear a lot about unhealthy departments.
Mhm.
What does healthy look like? What are effective SPED systems, and what does it look like in practice?
I think what healthy systems look like is the fact that you can say, I don't understand, and do the work to understand. Because I've been around situations where there's a problem, but you don't do anything to solve the problem. So I think first in being healthy is being aware, and know that, hey, I may not, as a leader, I may not know the answer, but let me seek out the answer or get the proper people in place to help us build. And I think that's the start of healthy. And then from building, you are learning what are the right things to do and put those things in place
Mm-hmm.
and move forward as it pertains to what are we using to teach our students, what curriculums, what resources, and lay all of those things out. So when you bring new people in, you can be able to train them on, this is how things work in our EC department. Here are the curriculums that we're using. These are our systems for making sure that we are a compliant team. So those are the things, is just being aware, creating your systems, creating your routines, and training not only your EC staff, but also the whole school. Because one of the things I hear a lot of is, oh, those are your students. No, these are our students.
Wow, students.
So we have to pull the general curriculum teachers, the general regular ed teachers in, EC teachers, specialists,
Mm-hmm.
and the leadership team. That's healthy.
If I'm a leader and I wanted to make one small improvement this week, because it's a process. You got to hire new people, you need processes, you need systems and structures in place, potentially mentorship in your services and different aspects of it's a lot transforming a whole department. But if there's one small change that I can make this week or tomorrow after I listen to this episode, what would that small change look like?
I would think the first thing, to sit down and just do a survey of your department to say what's going good and what's not.
Interesting.
And if you can identify what's going good, then you keep doing that. But if you have things in areas that that are not going well, start there.
What if you don't know? What if you have that principal or that leader that feels lost? And the reason that I ask that is because I was that person at one point. As a dean of students at a charter school here in Charlotte, I was tasked to implement programming for our SPED department, but had absolutely no idea where to start, what to do, what questions to ask. What if I felt lost? What would be your advice for me?
So that's a good question, because a lot do not know, and that kind of goes back to I was saying in the very beginning. But if you was to reach out to someone like me, a consultant, I will give you that guide to know how to score your department, to say what's working and what's not working, and it gives you all the components that you need to consider. Compliance wise, curriculum wise, staffing, training. We dissect all of those areas, and you rate yourself. Do like a little rating, and I will provide that for you. And then that way, these are the areas I need to be considering, and let me rate myself and our department to see where we're really struggling at. And that's where you start.
Why this work? It's hard enough being a teacher. It's hard enough working in education as a whole. But when you work in SPED support, I believe it's another layer of emotional and mental demand. Why this work?
I've just always had a place in my heart for working with children with disabilities, not just because that's where I see them staying, but I've also been a part of seeing students go beyond this. I've also seen and been able to witness teachers that maybe feel overwhelmed get to a place to where I can do this. And it's all about proper support. It's all about, doing what's best for each child, and I just have a passion for it. I think I started out years ago not even knowing this would be the track that I went into, but just going into, I posted recently an article about going into a school. Didn't even have a college degree, didn't know that I was going into this direction, but I wanted to start an after school program just to help students that were struggling.
That's how you got your start.
That's how I had my start. And
that is crazy.
I did not have a degree. I didn't have any credentials, but I had a heart to go in, and they brought me in. But in the process of me on that assignment, the homeschool coordinator of that school came up to me one day and said, "Have you ever thought about being a teacher?" And I said, yes. And so she told me about a scholarship. And through that, I got I was the first recipient of that scholarship.
Really?
My first 4 years of college was paid for to go to school to be a special education, for special education at East Carolina University. So
you still keep in contact with that person?
I have not been in contact. That was over 25 years ago. But that's where my start came, and it's just always been a passion just to help those students that were struggling.
No, that's so interesting, and I love hearing stories like that because I got my start in education, left pharmaceutical sales, and transitioned to Charlotte, and literally went through one of the charter schools and just asked to volunteer. And then connected with the after school director, and then went through the JA Biz program, and then long-term subbing and all of these different things. And, I had a degree. I did have a degree. That was the difference.
I did. That's very similar to me because that was all volunteer. All volunteer for me. No pay or anything.
What's your message to those teachers that don't have similar backgrounds, that have been pushing the pavement for decades and, are feeling a bit burnt out? Maybe they recognize that their school doesn't have the necessary supports or the necessary leadership that has either the acumen or the knowledge to be able to push them forward, and they're feeling like they want to leave the field. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, I would say don't give up, because that sounds a lot like my path in teaching. I didn't always have the leadership that really could lead me to where I wanted to go, but I had to seek out that support. And I had to just do things that I felt like I needed to do to help those students. And I feel like I had to always remember my why. I just couldn't walk away from my why, and that's what kept me grounded. And sought out the support that I needed.
Hey, it's Kyle. Sorry to interrupt your programming, but I got a quick culture check for you. How's your team's energy right now? I mean, literally, right now. Are people feeling inspired? Or are they just showing up? See, here's the truth. Culture doesn't change because we talk about it. It changes because we live it actively every single day. And that's what I help organizations do. Build contagious cultures that people actually want to be a part of. Through keynote talks, interactive trainings, and hands-on consulting, I help leaders transform the way their teams connect, perform, and grow. So if your culture needs a little bit of spark, let's light it up together. Visit theculturelab.org, again, theculturelab.org, or connect with me directly on LinkedIn at Kyle S. King to learn more about how we can work together. Because remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching. Now let's get back to the program.
To help me stay level and to help me stay in a place that encouraged me to make it. So I've always had mentorship through my career. I always had people that I would have to talk to if it wasn't my leadership or if it wasn't in my teams
Mhm.
in the schools that I work with. I always had mentorship through my journey that helped keep me grounded in the work that I knew that I was called to do.
What's a powerful lesson that a student or a teacher has taught you over the years that you really continue to carry with you today?
Um, do not, I would say from a student, do not count students out based off of their disability when you first encounter them. A student comes to mind that I still in contact with today. And matter of fact, he may be coming on as on my team to help me support.
That's
When
good.
I first met him in fifth grade, he considered having Asperger's syndrome, which is on the spectrum of autism. But when I met him, he could not read in the fifth grade.
In the fifth grade.
In the fifth grade,
Wow.
and he's told his testimony several times about the impact. But within 3 months, he was reading after I started tutoring him and working with him. He's
Wow.
a college graduate. He excels in math and science. He's tutoring at the college level. Um,
Wow.
and that is what encourages me, and a message that because of no matter how you may encounter a child, you cannot use that to
Mm.
project or say where they may go in the future. And he has super exceeded where many people thought he would be.
Powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I have
to me, man. It's
a story.
stories like that. It's
Yeah,
stories like that that truly make me happy. Um, Truly warm my heart as well. I think about so many students in my life that have taught me. It's interesting as educators and even as parents. We think we're the ones teaching our children or teaching our students, but truthfully, they teach us more
yeah,
about how we need to operate, how we need to continue to lead, or how we need to be resilient. And so that's a beautiful story. And I think, what would be your message to that teacher that has that student that is in fifth and sixth grade that can't read, or that's in ninth or 10th grade that doesn't have a will or a desire to continue their educational journey or have been casted out for so long? What would be your message for that educator?
my message would be to think outside of the box. Whenever you're working with students that many may see difficult.
Mm.
And even as I'm thinking about that, I had another young lady that I worked with that people had counted her out because they wanted to say she had behaviorally were having issues, academically having issues. And my approach with both students were different. A lot of times we have a lot of new things that we try, but some things is just the basic things that we used to do
Yeah.
that help children advance. And now this young lady has gone into she's graduated, gone into the military, is a business owner, and these are all students that people have counted out because of how they were when they encountered them
That's
in the
good.
very beginning. So you have to think outside the box and meet each child where they are, and that's an example of what happens when you do that.
Let me ask you this. There's the educator level and that aspect, and there's the leader aspect. But I think that a lot of people don't really talk about the toll as well as the support systems that parents need as well
Oh yeah.
for their student that are battling some challenges that need the additional support. What can parents do to better support their children and be a better partner with teachers, with schools, so that they can best advocate for their student?
So one of the things I do understand with some parents, maybe not all, but some parents in the line of work that I do, working in the special education arena, you find that you have a lot of parents who have had bad experiences when they were in school.
Yeah.
And then you have parents who, oh, I was in special education when I was in school. So sometimes you have to be intentional about how you connect with those parents. And by doing that, you do everything that you can to get them involved in the meetings. And in that is not just contacting parents when things are going wrong, but what are you contacting parents for and about with? This is what you can do at home to help this child excel, sending some of those resources home with the parent, using parent-friendly language that they understand all of the lingo around special education. And I will say I've worked with difficult parents over the years that started out that way, but relationships always improve because of the consistency in building those relationships, calling the parent, encouraging the parent to come to the school for the meetings, all of those things, calling for good things and not just what's, going wrong. And then sometimes parents just want to vent. Give them the opportunity and just listen. And do your best to give the best feedback that you can to help them feel comfortable with, coming to the school, help them feel comfortable when they're sitting in those meetings, that we're not talking over their heads. So when they leave, they also have a clear plan of what's going to take place moving forward for their child's education, not just in the pull-out setting, but also in the classroom, because you're working together as a team. And that's always a goal of mine, is when parents come in those meetings to put on and be, not just put on, but be a unified team with your leadership and with your regular ed teachers, and that we are working together to ensure that your child is successful and you are as a parent as well.
That's good. Let me ask you this. A school leader's listening right now and they're like, look, she's given us so much information, so much education on how we approach special education from a teacher side, from a parent side, and this whole ecosystem of our school. Are there tools or secrets or a framework that you leverage to be able to assess and be able to move a school forward that's wanting to be able to do this work better?
Yes, I do. I do have resources and frameworks that I use to help move students forward. One of the first things I always do is just have a conversation, to see what your individualized needs are, because everybody's is different. And based off of that, then we develop, based off of my framework and my resources, what's next to help you move in a direction to meet the goals that you have for you and your EC team and your school.
What's next for you? Like, how do you continue to grow this business? How do you continue to serve more schools? And ultimately, how can people connect or partner with you as you continue to do this work?
So what's next for me is I'm going to continue to grow by building my teams, to be able to continue to take on the work that it entails in the different schools, because every school is different and everybody's needs are different. So just building teams that can come in and do more targeted work to help move schools forward in this area. Because my goal is to see, because, our subgroups are graded, and so I would love to see that the special ed or the EC subgroup, a lot of the F's and the C's turn into A's and B's. It's possible, and that's my goal, is to help schools do that. And so, yes, so that's the season I'm in right now, is building.
When you think of leaders that you've worked with over the years, what leadership mistake do you see, I guess, most often, especially in struggling schools?
I think one of the biggest things sometimes is that we make our big plans, but we never really sit down and talk to the people that's involved in the EC departments to kind of really, really not only hear what they have to say, but bring them along to really do some of the work and be intentional at it, because we can put great things on paper, but
Right.
sometimes the reality of it is not there when you actually have to put it to work. And I think that that's one of the biggest things we have, and don't get me wrong, they're good visions.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that we need to be a big part of that vision and actually doing some of that work, the deep work that goes along with it.
When you think about the data component of SPED, and I know that is something that gets overlooked, gets something most times is misunderstood by teachers, by leaders. Where does that come in, and how do you ensure, I guess, the academic data is being used effectively and not just overwhelming teachers or overwhelming parents?
So I think one of the biggest things for me is that we have to get away from just looking at benchmark from benchmark to benchmark.
Yeah,
There's so much in between that we need to focus on, because I feel like it's what we do from uh, fall to winter, winter to spring. Everything we do in between is what's going to push us to the next benchmark to get the goals. And I
exactly.
think that we have to be so much more intentional about what we're doing from benchmark to benchmark. And so I'm big on that. That's why I feel like the, systematic, explicit programming where you have progress monitoring built in, where you're looking at that week to week. That's where you get the bang of your buck, I feel like, with moving students, especially, our EC students. But I think the one of the downfalls to that is like, where are we having those discussions?
Mm,
Where are we really looking at that data? Now I know we do a lot of the school wide, but really breaking down and pulling those EC teachers in, just like we do in our PLCs for our gen ed teachers. Where do we really pull those EC teachers and really guide them and train them through that data and what we need to do to move students and continue to move students when we find those areas where we're stuck.
with the rise in technology and AI and so many tools, and resources that schools as well as industry is using, um, where does that come in SPED? Are there any tools out there, learning platforms, resources that you recommend to our audience that have been enhancing this work that you're doing?
Well, I know we use a lot of chat, and that can be chat GTP. That can be a resource to help guide.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, let me say guide, because
Yeah.
we could put a lot of stuff in and we could put it on paper, but are we doing it? We still have to make sure
Exactly.
that whatever we are using AI for to guide us, that we're still implementing what we say or put on paper.
Yeah.
So that can be a resource, and they're coming up with resources to help specifically write IEP goals and those type of things, or
That's
do
good.
IEPs, you
That's
know.
good.
And I think that those things are helpful, and I think that is huge in helping to reduce some of the stress for some of our teachers, because that paperwork is a heavy
Oh, it is.
lift,
It
you know.
is. Where can people find you? How can we continue to support and just even learn more about the work that you're doing?
So on Instagram is at the strategy room _ and they can find me on LinkedIn, Olavee Williams, the strategy room there as well. Um,
What initiatives do you have or programs do you have that people can invest in or schools can invest in as we prepare to close out the year?
so one of the things that I'm rolling out now is Progress with Purpose. So this is a specialized PD that's not only about progress monitoring and data tracking for EC teachers, but it's for everyone whenever you consider meeting every student where they are, because one of the things we also miss is those students that are on grade level or beyond. We just tend to say, okay, they got it, and we just leave them there. But good progress monitoring across the board helps you continue to move every child.
Exactly.
And so I have a new rollout of a tool and PD that's coming that's strictly focusing on helping people master the progress monitoring and data tracking.
I appreciate you so much. And it's always amazing to talk to educators because there's first so much knowledge, there's so much insight. But I think that a lot of the conversations that I have with educators, I don't really believe that we either talk about enough, or people actually know some of the challenges that we actually deal with in the educational system and how it impacts students. So I appreciate you showing up with your heart, not gatekeeping information, and really being able to provide leaders, our audience, our teachers, our educational leaders, our change makers with not only the tools, but the roadmap on how they can be successful. Because if we're successful as the adults, as the leaders, then our students will also ultimately be transformed in what we implement within the school system.
Yes.
Any audience member that's still tapping in with us, I want you to just think about one thing. What are things that you can do, structures that you can implement, processes that you can make more effective that can transform the next generation of future leaders in our classrooms? How can you be more intentional? How can you ensure that you are building a strong enough foundation? And how can you hire people like Ms. Williams to be able to ensure they're on your team as you think through how to make what you're doing better? One of the questions that we also ask is, what type of culture are you spreading? Remember, the energy that you bring is the culture that you create. And I want you to make yours worth catching. That's another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and I'm here with the strategy queen herself, Miss Williams, and we look forward to seeing you all next episode.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to the Contagious Culture Podcast. If this episode challenged or inspired you, hey, take a second to share it with someone who's building culture in their world. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself join the movement. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or YouTube at Kyle S. King for more tips, tools, and methodologies to be able to help you create this ecosystem of absolute excellence. Until next time, lead boldly, live intentionally, and remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching.